Hi, this is Sammy. Okay, so I chose to do the Diary of Anne Frank for my book for the book crossing. So, to begin with the summary, The Diary of a Young Girl is the story of Anne Frank, a Jewish teenager who spent 2 years in hiding in Amsterdam during the Holocaust. She and 7 other people lived in the secret annex of her father's business building in Princeton Grot 263, including her father, Otto, her mother, Edith, sister, Margot, and the Van Pels family, which included Ermin, August, and Peter, and Fritz Pfeiffer. On her 13th birthday, just before going into hiding, Anne was given a diary. Over the next 2 years, she was able to document not only the events inside the annex, but also her personal thoughts and feelings. Anne's writing gives readers an intimate, raw view of life in hiding, especially through the lens of a young girl. She was able to showcase her frustrations, anger, and yearning for affection, love, and freedom during those times when she couldn't go outside. As she matured, her reflections revealed a deepening understanding of herself and the world around her. Anne became famous for her account under Nazi persecution, as her family and friends were systematically deported and murdered in concentration camps. Her diary captures her growth and emotional struggles during this time, with her last entry on August 1st, 1944, describing herself as a bundle of contradictions. She wrote, "As I've told you many times, I'm split in two. One side contains my exuberant cheerfulness, my flippancy, my joy in life, and above all, my ability to appreciate the lighter side of things." Shortly after this entry, it's estimated the Frank family was betrayed by someone and the Nazis discovered their hiding place in the secret annex. They were arrested and deported to Auschwitz, and later Anne and her sister Margot were sent to the Bergen-Belsen concentration camps. Both girls died there, people say, of disease, and likely in February and March 1945. Of the 8 people in hiding, Anne's father, Otto Frank, was the only survivor at the end of the war. Anne Frank's diary has become a powerful symbol of Jewish persecution during the Holocaust and a reminder of the universal right to freedom and dignity. So, for how this book relates specifically to Amsterdam, according to AnneFrank.org, more than 1 million people visit the Anne Frank house each year, commemorating Anne Frank and preserving her legacy. The objectives of the Anne Frank house are to honor the Frank family's memory, shed light into the lengths people had to go to survive during the genocide of the Jewish people, and raise awareness about Anne Frank's story specifically. Anne's perspective on World War II and the war itself is uniquely shaped by the innocence of a young girl transitioning from girlhood to womanhood, and how she was forced to navigate the horrors of hiding from the Nazis while dealing with her own inner emotions that come with going through puberty and things like that. As you read her diary, it quickly becomes clear that Anne was wise and extremely complicated beyond her years. Her father, this really stuck with me after going through the museum, even reflected he felt like he didn't even know her after reading her diary, which he never did, because every night she would leave it in his briefcase, I think next to his bed, and he vowed never to read it, and he never did until after her passing and he was released from his camp. Through her cherished diary, which she named Kitty, the readers develop a deep sympathy for Anne. Unlike other historical accounts, her personal voice makes her story resonate on a human level, allowing readers to connect with her not only as a victim, but also as a strong, sarcastic, and just kind of sassy young girl. Anne Frank's story humanizes the victims of the Holocaust, and she represents the average middle-class Jewish girl whose life was torn apart simply because of her existence and being of Jewish faith. The Anne Frank House in Amsterdam has done an exceptional job at creating a moving exhibit that brings the experiences and those in hiding to annex to life, while providing broader context on World War II and the Nazi occupation of Europe. For reflecting on what I enjoyed and why I would recommend this book to anyone, as a Jewish girl growing up in a largely Christian community, the story of Anne Frank is especially important and personal to me and my family. For example, in lower school, people would make jokes and call me Anne Frank and how I should burn and just things like that, and not necessarily in a serious way, but in just a kids making jokes way, messed up but innocently. So her story shares the nightmarish, extremely personal internal monologue of a young girl, I kind of talked about this before, that happens to be Jewish and is being persecuted because of it. You see her grow up in hiding and what it does to her psychologically, and just the story of Anne Frank really gets Jews and non-Jews alike to empathize and connect with an example of the average person who was affected by the Holocaust. A normal, sweet, complicated, like, girl, just like everyone. Also, it being told through the lens of a young girl makes the story even more disturbing and raw. By learning about history and the persecution of people through history books and dates, it's almost easy to disconnect from the real harms by being able to attach a face and truly connect to those affected via her diary and the physical space of her and the 7 others were forced to hide in. She has also become an example of why we need to always remember and talk about the Holocaust. Anti-Semitism in innocent, subtle ways, like kids calling me her name growing up, to outright attacks on synagogues in Israel, will always be a thing because evil and the hatred of Jews will always be a thing since the beginning of time. But talking about it forces everyone to look at the harsh realities and just be aware of it. Everyone should read this book and know who Anne Frank is, and that's why I chose to read it again. Like, I read it in probably middle school or the beginning of high school. I feel like a lot of people were, but just even growing up and reading it when I'm a lot older than her now, I feel like I was able to understand and empathize with her on a deeper level. So I definitely really enjoyed this book, and I'm happy it was a part of the course. Thank you.